Hare Srinivasa.
Namaskara. Hare Srinivasa. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Acharya Pavanosmakam Acharyani cha Bharati Devo Narayana Shishah Devi Mangala Devata. पूज्याय राघवेंद्राय सत्यधर्मरताय च भजतां कल्पवृक्षाय नमतां कामधेनवे. Namaskara, happy Guru Purnima to you all, and welcome again back to the Pravachana series Madhwa Gnana Vruksha from the Gnanakalpavruksha wing of New England Sri Raghavendra Swami Brindavana in Boston. So many of you have attended the previous session during February to April on the life and works of Sri Madhwacharya and his Shishya Parampara. As you're aware, we started the second part of the series in June on Haridasa Sahitya, where Sri Sunder gave us an introduction on Haridasa Sahitya and a brief about the life and works of Sri Dasaru, who is also referred to as Sangita Pitamaha. Today, Sundar would be talking about two other stalwarts in the Dasa tradition, Sri Kanakadasaru and Sri Gopala Dasaru. Incidentally, we will be putting all the recorded videos and the presentations in the Gnanakalpavruksha website for your reference. So please visit our website and learn more from these presentations as such. So welcome Sundar for today's presentation on Sri Kanakadasaru and Gopala Dasaru. We're all eagerly looking forward to it. Hare Srinivasa. Thank you.
Yonta Pravishya Mama Vacha Mimam Prasuptam Sanjeevayatyakhila Shakti Dharaswadhamna Anyam Chahasta Charana Shavanatva Gadim Pranan Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Acharya Pavanosmakam Acharyani cha Bharati Jevo Narayana Shrishaha Devi Mangala Devata. Thanks Sujit for that warm welcome, and welcome to all the participants of the Madhwa Gnana Vruksha program, the series that we started a few months ago. And Sujit has already given you the background. We are now dealing and discussing regarding Haridasa Sahitya, something that is absolutely unique and very, very unique, very, very special, and it continues to grow even today. Usually, whenever we talk about the world of philosophy, it is seen as something which is largely static. But when you look at the Madhva Shastra, it continues to grow, it continues to cherish and flower under so many great stalwarts. So today's Haridasa Sahitya session will cover the life and works of two stalwarts and two great people, two great personalities, coming from very different backgrounds, being through very, very difficult and challenging lives themselves, but have served as a role model for all of us as to how do we overcome challenges. You cannot but get tears in your eyes when you see and hear about the great difficulties that they all had to undergo in their lives. Today's session, we will look at their lives, which is about Sri Kanakadasaru and Gopala Dasaru. I would like to qualify one thing here. We started by giving an overview of Sri Haridasa Sahitya, and then we looked at and then we looked at the life and works of Sri Dasaru. After that, discussing Sri Kanakadasaru is absolutely right, because chronologically he comes in after Sri Dasaru. But after Sri Kanakadasaru, chronologically it is Sri Dasaru who comes in. But we are today discussing about Sri Gopala Dasaru. The reason was that we made a conscious decision that we need more time, one full session only to discuss about Sri Dasaru, because Dasaru's life and works have been researched, and there is a lot of information available about his life and his works. Unfortunately, we do not have that much of information about Sri Kanakadasaru and Sri Gopala Dasaru. But while researching and reading several works on them myself, I realized that whatever information that we have is enough for us to understand and get a fairly thorough understanding of their life, and of course go into their works as well. So personally, it was a very interesting journey for me. I will present some of the highlights about their work. So before we get into their lives, one of the things is that when you look at our scriptures, and this is very important for us to understand before we get into Sasa Sahitya, is that the whole world of Madhva philosophy is based on the Vedas, as you can see right at the bottom. There is Vedas. But to be able to understand the Vedas, which tend to be cryptic sometimes, you need a framework. And that framework is called the Tippani, are called the Brahma Sutras. On top of the Vedas, or next thing which are actually clearer and more exact in that nature because they can be understood through the means of stories, is Purana. And but to understand all these things and put it in the right perspectives and to correct all the errors that have crept in because of several reasons, we need Sri Madhwacharya's Sarvamula Granthas. And to understand the Sarvamula Granthas in greater detail, we need the Tika Grantha, predominantly written by Sri Jaitirtha, and the Tippani Granthas written by great commentators such as Sri Vyasarajuru, Raghavendra Swamiji, and Raghottama Tirtharu, and Vadirajuru, and so on. So this is the structure. But the beauty is the Haridasa Sahitya, or the Sahitya that is predominantly in the Kannada language, which is propagated since the beginning, has actually covered all these aspects. There are no aspect of any of these granthas which Haridasa Sahitya does not actually cover. That is what makes it very, very special. The origin of Sri Haridasa Sahitya started at the time of Sri Madhwacharya himself. So it is not an afterthought that we should also present our scriptures and Sahitya in another language or make it accessible to the common man. It was an idea that Sri Madhwacharya himself had, and his Dvadasha Stotra and probably Sri Krishnamrita Mahardama, two of the texts that he wrote, two of the 37 Sarvamula Granthas, are something which actually probably inspired the Haridasa Sahitya. Though they were in Sanskrit, they were rich in musical content and is sung in a musical tune even today. There is also a notion, or there is a belief, that at one time Sri Madhwacharya also wrote a book related to classical music, not in the Sarvamula Granthas, but outside of Sarvamula Granthas. But unfortunately, we do not have that Grantha, and also this is not a substantiated fact. So we don't know that yet, but it suffice to say that the Dvadasha Stotra and Sri Krishnamrita Mahardama served as great inspirations for Haridasa Sahitya, or the Sahitya of the philosophy that we are presenting in today's world in Kannada language. His immediate disciple, Sri Narahari Tirtha, composed the first song, or what is available today as the first song in Kannada, which talks about the Madhva Mata, or the Madhva philosophy. Soon, the great commentator Sri Jaitirtha also has written a Devarnama on which again, so both these are indications that the Haridasa Sahitya started very early. But it was really Sri Sripada Rajuru who came in much later, who saw the power of taking and looking at the philosophy and presenting it in the local language, which makes it accessible to everybody. That is an excellent way of reaching out to people. So Sripada Raja started that in a very big way. He himself a great composer, and he ensured that people who came after him and who were with him, his contemporaries, also composed several kritis. His disciple was none other than the famous Vyasarajuru, and then came Vadirajuru, Vijayendraru, and Raghavendra Swamiji. All these people, apart from being fantastic scholars in Sanskrit, also have written many Devarnamas in the Kannada language. But it was really up to Sri Purandara Dasaru, who was a contemporary of Sri Vyasarajuru and Vadirajuru and Vijayendraru, who came at that time to start this as a very big movement. That is why probably we call him Dasarendare Purandara Dasaraya, because that he defined what the Dasatva meant in that context, and how somebody who is a grihastha and not a sannyasi, what is the kind of life he had to lead. We've heard a story in the last session. And his another contemporary is Sri Kanakadasaru. And then after a certain gap of time, we had Gopala Dasaru, Vijay Dasaru, and Sri Jagannath Dasaru. All came together in a very, very impactful manner, and absolutely made the Madhwa philosophy available, accessible, understandable, and something that people can internalize. Very, very important. When you can't understand, there is no way you can internalize. But just because you've understood something at an intellectual level does not ensure that you are able to internalize this. So when you look at the Haridasa Sahitya, one of the big highlights is the moment you read it, it just goes straight into your brain. It's intellectual, stimulating at the same time. It touches your heart at the right places. So it's a very, very important aspect of that. So if you look at it just from a chronology perspective, the time that Sri Sripadarajaru, Vyasarajaru, Vadirajaru, Vijayendraru, and Sri Purandara and Kanakadasaru, all of them were contemporaries, probably a golden era in the Madhwa philosophy and the Dvaita Vedanta itself. So if you look at this chronology, it is Purandara Kanakadasaru, Gopala Dasaru, Vijay Dasaru, Jagannath Dasaru. So now in this session, we are going to look at the life and works of Sri Kanakadasaru and Gopala Dasaru. So what is the significance? Is that it is a superb combination of music, literature, and philosophy. What Purandaradasa laid as a foundation stone and a framework for people to learn Carnatic music 400 years, 500 years back is followed even today in every part of the world. Yes, there could have been great musicians who came after him, but all of them treated him as a Sangita Pitamaha. Sri Tyagaraja, again a great saint poet himself, has composed a kriti offering his namaskarams to Sri Purandaradasa and acknowledging that it was only Purandaradasa's kritis which inspired him to compose the great kritis that he has done. And the other big thing that I think Haridasa Sahitya did was it started to orient the scholars towards the social issues and the common man towards God. What do I mean by this? Is that when people have scholarship, they move away from the society. That's a big peril, because a person who's a scholar, a true scholar, will want to use his scholarship for the benefit of the society, but seldom does it happen. The moment people get scholarship, they start wanting to grow their scholarship more, their wealth more, and not really bother about the others. But Haridasa Sahitya, as we will see today, it brought the scholars towards the social issues and the common man towards God. If all that we have to learn about God is really in the realm of scholastic works, that too written in Sanskrit, the common man will not have access to them. And then you cannot blame them that they did not approach God, who should be at the center of everything that we do. Haridasa Sahitya precisely did that. It brought God to the center of our lives and ensured that we are able to develop a mindset where we are always thinking about God. That is what is meant by Shama. So it's called Shama Dhamma. Shama means it is always thinking about God, a very essential quality for a sadhaka. Today we may all turn around and say, all this is nice on a Sunday today that is happening. But Monday morning, we all get busy with our lives. But wherever we are, if we are able to get God at the center of that, look at everything as God's creation. Look at everything and say, this is happening because of God and not me. That is Shama. So it was started by renowned scholars. If you see Haridasa Sahitya, as we have seen, all the people who composed great kritis, especially from the times of Sri Narahari Tirtharu, were great scholars. So what does it tell us? That though these people, the whole topic of Haridasa Sahitya has an acceptance across from every perspective, from a scholastic perspective as well. we will see more of that in their lives. And ease of understanding, which was brought predominantly in Kannada. Many people say, why is Haridasa Sahitya not available in other languages and why only Kannada? It is probably a comment that has to go back to where Madhva Mata was actually prevalent at that time, which was predominantly in Kannada speaking areas, not Karnataka as we see today. Kannada was spread in different parts, and that is what has probably inspired people to connect with people who are around them. And it is a mobile source of knowledge with access to all. Haridasas toured the length and breadth of the country, went into villages, went into very, very small places, and then educated people at their homes. They did not expect the common man to come to them, because they will have their own reservations. They will have their own embarrassments and shyness sometimes, because they do not want to come and learn something. But they did not stop. They said this is too fundamental. The knowledge of Tattvavada is something which everybody should be knowing. It should be in our day-to-day lives. It should become a part of us. It should become, in fact, a way of life. And as to do that, they ensured that their experiences as proof. Whole Madhva Shastra is based on, you heard something. Is it your experience? Are you able to experience it? If you're not able to experience it, you can leave it aside, right? So therefore, if you look at Haridasa Sahitya, everything that they talked about actually combined the day-to-day happenings around us. So if you read the Sahitya, it will always talk about happenings around us, people around us, activities around us, events around us, human attitudes, human behavior, human mindset around us. So everybody could relate to that very, very easily. So Haridasa Sahitya is indeed unique if you look at the length and breadth of the country, for that matter, in India. So with that, let us move into the life of works of a great saint by name Kanakadasaru. Kanakadasaru, I'm sorry for the typo, it is Kanakadasaru. So Kanakadasaru was a great saint, and he had a life which had several ups and downs. And someone who, despite coming from the Kuruba community, has found acceptance all over the world as one of the greatest Haridasa Sahitya. A very unique story which probably does not have similarities with the other stories that we hear about our great gurus. So Kanakadasaru was born to Birappa, who was a chieftain, and his mother Banchamma. So what a chieftain actually means is someone who leads a few villages and towns. So he was again a great warrior. He had ruled those places, and who we call as Dandanayaka. Dandanayaka. That means someone who's a chieftain. And both his parents had given birth to him and named him Timmappa. So they did not have children for a very long time. They prayed to Lord Venkateshwara in Tirupati, and with the blessings of Lord Venkateshwara, the child was born, and that is why they named him Timmappa. He was born in a place called Bada, which is on the north Karnataka. If you go from Bangalore to Pune, you will find all these places and surrounding places by the side. All these places are pretty close to Sode, or where Sri Madhwacharya's Vrindavana is there. So if you happen to go there during your next visit to India, please do visit all these places. A beautiful shrine has been built in all these places as well, and very well maintained. So the special thing about Timmappa was that he was educated, and not just in the world of warfare and administration, which was what his profession was, or he would be growing into becoming a chieftain after his father, but he was also an avid listener to Mahabharata, Harivamsha, Bhagavata, etc. In those days, it was very common to find people going from village to village reciting what was called Harikatha, which was Harikatha Shravana, which is people would come in the evening and in a musical form present these great scriptural texts, in a manner that everybody can understand. That was also not just a form of learning philosophy, but in some sense even a form of entertainment, because it was full of musical presentations. Very this practice and this kind of art continues even today in many parts of South India that you can see. In fact, North India also we have the Ram Leela, etc. But here, what is important for us to note is that when children, irrespective of their background, are exposed to our scriptures, or for that matter anything else, they imbibe that. So if you teach children about our scriptures, the richness of how that can help build become great personalities, they will probably veer towards that, and that becomes something that they can count on all their lives. It is not something that is going to go away with them. It will be with them. They may not use it. And we will see precisely in Sri Kanakadasaru's story how he actually moved in that journey and became a saint, though he was born in a family of chieftains. He was well versed in Kannada, and he had a thorough understanding of Sanskrit. It's very evident. There are kritis. When you read them, it is the common belief is that Sri Kanakadasa was an illiterate person. It is difficult for us to imagine that, because his hold on the Kannada language and the hold on understanding of Sanskrit clearly tells us that he had an understanding, and he was in fact very well versed in these two languages. Probably he learned it in his childhood, which of course we are not able, we don't find a proof, but it's his works are proof enough that he indeed was a scholar, and that's why he's called a Santa Kavi, or a poet, and a poet cannot be illiterate. So this, I'm just showing you the glimpse of Sri Adikeshava temple, which is there in Kaginele. Kaginele is a small village. It's a little away from the birthplace of Bada, but we'll come to Kaginele and the story there, very soon. So this is the initial part of his life. From there, something fantastic happened. He grew up to be a great chieftain, and one day, what happened was that they were excavating one part of a town, and they discovered huge amount of wealth, predominantly gold, which was hidden there since times unknown, and that gold became a huge form of wealth, and they all came and gave it to Kanakadasa because he was the chieftain. Kanakadasa, in his true style, looked at that gold and said, "Yes, this is God's money. It should go to the people." And he used that money to do a number of societal things, including developing a big garden, uh, you know, building lakes and ponds, very, very important source of water. If there was water, then there would be agriculture. People would settle down. They would need water for their daily uses, and so on and so forth. So it was a great time and a great gesture from him, that not only we got the money, anybody probably would have used it for selfish reasons, but Kanakadasa was not to do so. He then used it for social causes. That is why he got the name Kanakadasa. So he was Timmappa earlier, that he became Kanakadasa, man of heart of gold, and of course he owned that gold. So as a symbolic gesture, people started calling him Kanakadasa. Unfortunately, he had a very difficult personal life. His father passed away when he was very young. He was brought up by his mother, who then groomed him to be a chieftain. It is said that he also was married later on, and which is evident in his poem that he has written as Mohana Tarangini, which actually talks about his life as well. And he was married to a woman, a very pious, very knowledgeable, and clearly a very beautiful woman. It's described in the poem, and they had a son as well. But unfortunately, very soon his wife passed away, and so the child also passed away after some time. Not much later, unfortunately, he also lost his mother. So at a fairly young age, he was left all alone in the world. But he continued to be a chieftain, saw that as a way of serving the society around him. And once what happened was, he got onto a very deadly war with an enemy who attacked him, this particular this whole kingdom, and he was stabbed repeatedly by a sword from behind. almost it almost killed him. But Kanakadasa fell on the ground, absolutely wounded very badly, bleeding for several hours. And at that time, he had not, and he, in sheer pain and agony and fear, he shouted, Venkatappa, Venkatappa, calling Venkateshwara himself. And who appeared in front of him was Sri Venkateshwara himself, who gave him the strength to recover, but also told him that, look, your time to be a chieftain is over. Now is the time for your self-realization. Serve God, that is, serve me, and serve the society around you. You need to change. This is that transformational moment in the life of Sri Kanakadasa. So from that time, he completely dedicated himself in the service of God. And who should he meet when he was on a spiritual path? Sri Vyasaraja himself, the doyen of Madhwa philosophy at that time. He is considered one of the Munitrayas after Madhwacharya, Jaitirtha, and himself, that is Vyasaraja himself. A great scholar, a fantastic administrator, a person who had founded a world-class university by the time Kanakadasaru actually met him. And he guided Kanakadasa on his life, throughout his life on his spiritual lessons. Sri Vadaraja, who was also there with Sri Vyasaraja as his disciple, also guided Sri Kanakadasa. So there are a lot of references in the biography where it is said that both of them met, and it was Sri Vadaraja also who inspired Sri Kanakadasaru. From there, he moved to the Kagi. From that time onwards, he moved to Kaginele. As I said, a little different, slightly different from Mada, and he settled down there. And what did he do? He had actually established a temple of Adikeshava in Mada. He took that along with him on his own shoulder, a stone idol, and took it all the way up to Kaginele. Even to this day, the picture that you saw in the previous slide actually has the temple where Kaginele has Sri Adikeshava temple, which is beautifully, now it's been redone as well. It looks beautiful, and it is prayed to every day by people over there. And then he visited Sri Vyasaraja, took the Diksha from him, and I will come to that in a minute. We visited several places like Kaginele, Channapura, Kammuru, Bada, Bankapura, Kadaramandali, Madhepura, Kanakapura, Pandarapura, Srirangapatana, Tirupati, Belur, and Udupi. So he went all around many places, praying to God, spreading the message of God to everybody. Now, another thing which is unique about Sri Kanakadasaru is his language. Though it is in Kannada, it is a language which is used in the villages. So everybody could understand what he was saying because he was using words which is used in the villages. So therefore, everybody could understand that in their language. It was something that was accessible to all. And in a moment, one line or one word was enough to awaken them and take them on their spiritual path. A very unique contribution of Sri Kanakadasaru. So from there, you can see the Kanaka Gopura in Udupi, which is built recently as a tribute to Sri Kanakadasaru visiting Udupi. From there, we go to some other anecdotes of his life. There was once Sri Vyasaraja had Kanakadasa at his ashrama, and obviously since he belonged to the Kuruba caste, people would always keep him at a distance, and it was also jealousy that he had got so much of attention from Sri Vyasaraja. Sri Vyasaraja wanted to prove that it was indeed Sri Kanakadasa's merit and his spiritual quotient which had made him so special in his eyes. It was not any kind of favoritism. So to prove that, one day it was an Ekadashi day, that means the day on which Vaishnavas observe a full fast. And on that day, he gave a banana, a plantain, to all his disciples and say, please go and eat it in a place where nobody can see. You should eat it, but at that time, nobody should see you. Please go and eat it at that time. So everybody went running, finding the place where there was absolutely no one. Some people had hid under the stairs. Somebody just put a blanket on themselves so that nobody can see them. And people did all kinds of things. After some time, he called all of them and said, yes, tell me, where all did you eat it? So they all said where they have actually hidden and eaten that, and they actually assured Sri Vyasaraja that nobody could see them when they were eating it. At that time, he turned towards Vyasaraja, turned towards Sri Kanakadasa and asked him, so Kanaka, where did you eat that? He says, I couldn't eat this plantain at all because I was trying to find a place in this universe where God cannot see us, and there was no such place. So you said you should eat it in a place where that nobody should see you, but I actually could not find any such place because Lord Narayana is Vishvatas Chakshuhu, Vishvatas Bahuhu. That means he has got his eyes everywhere in this universe. He has got his Bahu, his hand can extend to every part of the universe. So therefore, there is no place that God cannot see us. So that is why I could not eat. Again, it clearly brought out the spiritual heights to which Sri Kanakadasa belonged to. The next day, Sri Vyasaraja came into the ashrama and all his disciples were there. And he just looked at them and said, look, there is something in my hand. Can you tell me what this is? And everybody made their own guesses. And he asked Kanakadasa, what is there in my hand? And through his divine vision, he could actually see that what Sri Vyasaraja had in his hands was actually a Vasudeva Saligrama. A Saligrama, as you know, is a sacred stone which has the presence of Lord Vishnu in it, and it is prayed to every day in Vaishnava homes. So Vasudeva Saligrama is a specific type of Saligrama which has got Shankha and Chakra in a certain set of places. There are different types of Saligramas as well, as you probably would know. So this was Vasudeva Saligrama. So not only did he know that Sri Vyasaraja had a Saligrama in his hand, but also the fact that it was indeed a Vasudeva Saligrama. That is when he composed the famous Kriti, Itaniga Vasudevanu. That means now he is Vasudeva right in Sri Vyasaraja's hand. So one day again, Vyasaraja continued and proving to the world that it was indeed Sri Kanakadasa's height as in a spiritual learning that had made him so special. So one day he asked people, who will attain salvation? Who will go and get salvation? Everybody said, yes, I'm going to get salvation because I've studied so much. Somebody else said, I will get salvation because I pray so much, and so on and so forth. So then he asked Kanakadasa, what do you think? Who will go as salvation? He gets salvation. He said, Nanu hodare hogabahudu. Nanu hodare hogabahudu. So, which literally translates to, if I goes, I may go. So it's not if I go. If I goes, I may go. So everybody was wondering, what is this meaning? Then Sri Vyasaraja asked Kanakadasa to explain. He says, if I, the ego that I am me, if that I goes, then I may go. Meaning that if I am able to overcome my ego and give up my I, then I may go. That means probably God will find me fit to grant me salvation. A very beautiful way of saying something so beautifully, yet with poetic elegance. Once he visited the Tirupati Kshetra, and so they were all waiting for Sri Kanakadasa to come because he had already become very famous. And he was in the crowd, but nobody in the crowd had seen him before. So they didn't know how he looked. So they all looked at, they were all waiting, and finally some people were pushing him around to the back. So then he said, those in the front are at the back. Those at the back are in the front. So he meant to say that you are all waiting for me to come, and then the event will start. But you are not letting me go into the front, otherwise, and then you will not know I have come. Everybody thought he's just asking people to send him to the front. But then they realized he's trying to say something else, and immediately realized that he himself is Kanakadasa. They fell at his feet and said, can you please explain, sir, what you meant? And then he said, those people who have the ego that they are studying, they are praying to God, and they have gone way ahead in their path of moksha or salvation, or get the blessings of God, or going in the front with that ego will be left behind. They will have to go back. But people who are behind are hungry for that spiritual knowledge, are hungry for their prayers, and they pray to the God even more. Therefore, they will move in the front because they are praying to God with all the humility instead of having that ego that they are really in the front. So that is why he said those in the front are actually at the back, and those at the back are actually in the front. And once, when they tried to pull the divine chariot in Tirupati, he did not move. They realized that it was Kanakadasa who had actually come there, but the officials did not permit him to pull the ropes. And that is why Lord Venkateshwara said, "No, I'm not going to move till Kanakadasa actually pulls the chariot." And then they realized their mistake and then allowed him to do that. And immediately the chariot moved. Again, a great sign and a kind of an endorsement coming from Lord Venkateshwara about how special Sri Kanakadasa is. So, of course, Sri Kanakadasa's works are plenty. He lot of new kritis, a lot of kritis that he had composed are now coming out and getting published. Recently, our Guru Sri Vyasankara Prabhanjanacharya has actually beautifully brought together all the kritis of Sri Kanakadasaru in this beautiful book called Kanakadasaru Samagra Kritigalu. He has also published two other books on Kanakadasaru very recently. All these are published in the last 3 to 4 months. So they are also available on Amazon. So if this is of interest to you, please procure these books and read them, because it has compiled all the kritis of Sri Kanakadasaru. So his different kritis, the list is there: Mohana Tarangidi, Nala Charitra, Hari Bhakti Sara, so on and so forth. I will not go through each one of them, but he has actually made a contribution to in using all aspects of Haridasa Sahitya, very, very comprehensive. Mohana Tarangini is partly his biography. Now, one thing that we should we will want to remember is that Sri Kanakadasaru, before he started, had a complete belief in Dvaita philosophy, he also had a following in the Shaiva and Sri Ramanujiya Mata, which is Vishishtadvaita. He, in his earlier years, there is evidence that he had actually composed kritis in praise of Shaivite gurus as well as Sri Ramanujacharya. All those kritis are also available here. But I think after he got enrolled into the Dvaita school by Sri Vyasaraja, he never looked anywhere else and he realized that that is his final stop in terms of his philosophical pursuit. And from then on, it is very evident in all his kritis about his immense respect for Sri Madhwacharya, his works, and of course the great disciples who came later. He has composed kritis which clearly mentions Sri Vyasaraja's great contribution and influence on his life, as also Sri Vadaraja. So a great life, a very unique style of writing. You should read it. I think you will really enjoy reading his kritis. Most of them are fairly pithy. They're short, and in a very short period of time, in a few words and sentences, he's able to create an emotional bond for all of us to understand God. Amongst these kritis that you see, Hari Bhakti Sara has got a lot of similarities to Harikatamrita Sara of Sri Jagannatha Dasaru. While we cannot call it an encyclopedic work, it is fairly vast, covering different aspects of the Dvaita philosophy, greatness of God, pulling in a lot of references from the Puranas and the Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, etc. It is a beautiful compilation, and if you ask me, you could probably start by understanding and learning reading the Hari Bhakti Sara. Of course, as always, it's an intellectual challenge to read Mundiges. Mundiges are small, compositions, pithy compositions that are there, which are cryptic. It is like a puzzle, and if you understand, the scriptures, it's a good test whether you are able to break the puzzle or understand the puzzle and see and unravel what Sri Kanakadasaru is saying. That Mundiges are available by almost all the Haridasas. That was their way of engaging people in an intellectual discussion as well. So fantastic compilations are available today, and I would encourage all of you to read that. So Kanakadasa passed away in Kakinele, it is said, and there's an interesting story again a testimony to how much he had traveled. It is said that the king of Jaipur had actually Rana Pratap Singh, as we know, is a very famous king. He has actually built a small samadhi in Jaipur. It is available even now, which is believed to be a samadhi dedicated to Sri Kanakadasaru, and it is available there. That is not where he passed away. He did pass away in Kaginele, but it is he built it like a memorial in a flood. So you can imagine the impact Haridasa Sahitya had. So those of us who think it is a very localized thing should also see some of our earlier sessions that we have done, where we have shared how the entire Madhwa philosophy actually went all around the country, inspiring people from virtually every state. And this is a classic example and illustration of how revered that the Haridasa Sahitya was to somebody as far as Rana Pratap Singh. So that is the life and work of Sri Kanakadasaru. Now we will move from there to Sri Gopala Dasaru. Gopala Dasaru is one of the four Dasa Chatushtaya, they are called. Why so is because their contributions were stellar, and what they did was actually inspire hundreds and thousands of people to become Haridasas. So they were all separated, they were all not contemporaries, but Purandaradasa was much earlier to them, but then Vijay Dasaru, Gopala Dasaru, and Jagannath Dasaru, all three of them were contemporaries. Again, what could be considered a golden era in the Haridasa Sahitya world for us. So the story of Gopala Dasaru is something which is very, very moving. And when one hears about the difficulties that he faced, it's very similar to other people and other great men as well, who always ensure that they are able to overcome these difficulties, never lose faith, never lose focus on what they think is most important at all costs. Nothing can deter them. That is the lesson, that is what we learn from learning their life. Many times we wonder, why should we sit and listen to these stories? They are hundreds of years old. They don't seem to have any relevance today, but they do, because what we learn from them is the fact that they face challenges like all of us. They face difficulties like all of us. Yet they were able to overcome that because of their immense faith in whatever they were doing. And they fought it at all costs, without causing any harm, without hurting anyone, but at the same time being steadfast to their goals and achieving their goals. And at the same time inspiring not just themselves, which is what we tend to do. We tend to think too much about ourselves, our immediate family, our immediate friends. We never think what is the legacy that we will probably leave in the years to come. And they were very conscious that their time is not their time. They need to inspire several other people. And that is why probably, despite 400 years since they have come and passed away, we still think about them. The point for all of us to think is that will we leave this kind of a legacy behind as we go along? And that's what we should all try. All of us cannot become Purandaradasa or Gopala Dasaru and these greats, but we can learn certain things at least and imbibe them in our lives. So his parents were Murari Raya and Venkama. Both of them he was born in a place called Modalakallu. Some people call it Mosarakallu, but it's still called Modalakallu only. Probably it was called differently at that time. Both these names are there in Devadurga district of Karnataka, again north part of Karnataka. He was born in 1717, and one of his entire life, fortunately for us, has been captured by his own brother Sri Rangadasaru, who wrote several suladis which encapsulate important parts of their world. So there were four brothers in all, and their mother Venkama and Murari Raya. Unfortunately, Murari Raya passed away when the last child in the family was born. And at that time, so it was really up to Venkama to bring her children up under very difficult circumstances. The family of cousins and other people became estranged because they were worried that they will come and ask for a stake in the property, the family property as such. So they ensured that the family was virtually orchestrated and thrown out of the village itself, leaving them in not just poverty but utter poverty. They humiliated them, they abused them so badly that they had to finally leave the village. uh, Venkama, you would then move with her 4 children into a small Hanuman temple on the outskirts of the city. And they were not happy even with that. So some people, some kind gentleman came and gifted them some land where they said, okay, this land is available. It belongs to me. You can use it and you can grow. And whatever you grow, you can make some money and look at your livelihood. And at that time, Venkama started working in the fields along with the children. But unfortunately, her family members could not even they could not even bear that much of happiness in their life. They just came and ensured that they have to leave even that place and go away. Venkama fell at the feet of her relatives and to spare them, but they wouldn't listen. And in anger, the person actually kicked her. Looking at this Bhaganna, a small boy, so Gopala Dasaru's name actually was Bhaganna. Even now, in many kritis that we see, he is still referred to as Bhaganna only. Because for a good part of his life, he had not got his Ankita called Gopala Dasaru. At that time, he was a very young boy, but he could not, was too young to retaliate to his relatives. But he, in sheer anger, he said, these people, our relatives, don't seem to have any sympathy for us children. We are dying out of hunger, but they don't seem to care. So I curse them that they don't have children in their family ever after. And this lake, which they are not permitting us to take water from, should never have water ever. And the young boy's words, which many people would have probably ignored, came true. Even to this day, it is said that that family does not have children. Only recently, after praying to Gopala Dasa for several generations and cousins and everybody, finally the child is born in their family. But the lake still does not have water. It's still a dry lake. And that was the child's curse. Then one day it was time for Bhaganna to have the Upanayana ceremony, which is wearing the sacred thread and getting the Upadesha of Gayatri mantra, the most powerful mantra ever. And she got that ceremony performed, and the child said, look, every day we are looking at facing one difficulty after the other. Each of these difficulties is threatening our very existence. So I would like to now start doing Gayatri Mantra Punascharna. That means repeating the Gayatri Mantra over and over again. I will do nothing. I will do Mauna Vrata. For 2 years, as such a young boy performed the Mauna Vrata, or Vrata where he would not speak at all. And he would just go on reciting the Gayatri Mantra. So this famous banyan tree, which exists even today, is the place where Sri Gopala Dasa was chanting Gayatri. So for 2 years, it is said that he actually ensured that he would do 1 crore. He would recite the Gayatri Mantra 1 crore times. And after this was over, something strange happened. When he opened his eyes, one fine day, he got a premonition that he will be able to see the lives, 3 past lives of people. So he'll be able to tell them what had happened in their lives for 3 births. Something that was absolutely impossible for people to believe. Initially, people did not believe him as well, but slowly he gained the reputation that he was a great astrologer who could tell what happened in the past and who could also tell what he's got in the future. And people started queuing up. And in between, there's another strange incident happened. One day he was sitting and doing his meditation when a snake came and engulfed him and went around his tummy, and he standing there. Everybody was shocked. And after people said, look, he's being protected now by God. So there's nothing that we can do. Let us pray to God to protect him. And within a few minutes, the snake just went away. Again, these are clear signs that God tells people that the person whom he has sent is no ordinary human being. He is a very, very special person who's blessed by God himself. And many incidents then happened in his life. He defeated a very famous scholar who had come for a debate on poetry and a competition of sorts. Bhaganna defeats him. The local king who had virtually forsaken him all these years comes, begs for forgiveness, and gives him a lot of money. So instantly he started becoming rich with a lot of materialistic wealth. But in his heart, he was very clear that all that money that he got is all a gift by God to be used for societal purposes. So his house was not a house anymore. It had become an ashram where he would give food to everybody who would come. All the money that people would give him as a fees for his astrological prediction, which was a lot of money, he would give it to the people who were needy. So that was a great life of Sri Gopala Dasa, which transformed very, very, almost you can say instantly. So you will remember that in Purandara Dasa's life, it was that incident, one incident that happened when his wife's nose ring, which he had with him, suddenly disappeared. More of that story is available in that session. So I would urge you to go and read that, listen to that. And in Kanakadasa's life, it was about getting stabbed and virtually getting killed in a war. And in Gopala Dasa's life, it was that recitation of Gayatri mantra for 2 years that actually transformed their lives completely. In Vijay Dasa's life as well, we will see things like that, and so will we see about Jagannatha Dasa. In fact, that story we'll see today itself, because that has got a very close relationship with what Gopala Dasa himself did. So his life progressed, and what happened after that was Bhaganna, as I said, became the giver. He never kept money for himself. And then one day he decided that he's going to visit Kashi, a great sacred pilgrimage. He went there, and whom does he meet there? He meets none other than the great Vijay Dasaru. Vijay Dasaru by that time had already had got his Ankita from Purandar Dasaru in his dreams, and he had Bhaganna meet him, Gopala Dasa met him there. And that was the time, he decided to take the Ankita. So that Ankita was under the famous banyan tree. It is available even today. You can go and see it. Some people say this incident happened in Kashi, but this place is very, very close to Uttanur, which is where Gopala Dasa's house was. So there are two stories, but it seems more plausible that it was under this banyan tree, because even now the place has been very kept safely. There's a Hanuman temple which is built there, and there is also an inscription which says that was the place where Gopala Dasa got his Ankita. Ankita is nothing but a signature, which is very typical of that person, and which stands as also the name of God. So Gopala Vittala is the Ankita that he got from there. From that day, Bhaganna Dasaru became Sri Gopala Dasaru. Today we know him, of course, more famously as Gopala Dasaru. And one incident that happened at that time was about Sri Jagannatha Dasaru. Jagannatha Dasaru, again, was a very, very famous, extremely endowed, very knowledgeable scholar. He had completed 108 Mangalas of Srimad Nyayasudha. Doing it once is considered a lifetime achievement. Apparently, he had done that 108 times. A scholar who had immense respect, a lot of wealth himself, but for some reason he did not respect Haridasas. He would look at them and say, these people, are people who compose kritis in Kannada, but they don't understand Sanskrit. So there was an air of superiority that he had against Haridasas. So once Sri Vijay Dasa came to the place where Sri Jagannatha Dasa was there, and at that time his name was Srinivasacharya, and he invited Srinivasacharya to come to his home and accept food on Dvadashi day, which people will have early in the morning. It's called Parane. Early in the morning, Ekadashi you do the fast, and Dvadashi you go and have the Parane. That time, Srinivasacharya had his own reservation. He did not want to go and have food in his house. So Vijayadasa was all set the next day morning, waiting for Srinivasacharya to come along with so many other people. And then finally he sent word. He said, "Where is Srinivasacharya? Can you go and call him?" Then he went there. People went to his house to call him. He said, "No, no, I have some problem. I have acidity. You know what we call today as acidity. If you don't eat for too long, then I get an acidic problem and I get a stomach ache. So I will not be able to come today." Sri Vijayadasa, of course, ignored it, and he said, "Okay, to everyone his own," and proceeded with serving lunch to the others. At that time, Sri Jagannatha Dasaru immediately, as luck would have it, and it was God's had ordained it, immediately Sri Jagannatha Dasaru he got stomachache, something that he did not actually have. He started getting a deadly pain, which was absolutely unbearable. So finally, he went and fell at the feet of, he went to Tirupati, Mantralaya, and he was instructed by Sri Raghavendra Swamiji himself that he should go to Tirupati. He went to Tirupati, and Lord Venkateshwara said, "Look, you have insulted Sri Vijayadasa. So there is nothing that you can do. You have to go and seek his forgiveness. There's no point in coming to me. You should go to him." No, that does not mean Lord Venkateshwara cannot cure this, but he wanted to teach a lesson to Srinivasacharya. Then, of course, a lot of things happen. We will see it in the subsequent session. But at that time, Gopala Dasa gifted, and mark my words, he gifted 40 years of his precious life to Jagannatha Dasa. A person might gift anything, might give anything, give away, but his own life, he gives 40 years of his life, Ayushya Dana, as it's called, to Jagannatha Dasaru. And soon Jagannatha Dasaru realized his mistake and got cured of the disease of his stomachache, as well as he went on. And what did he do in that 40 years? He made probably the best use of that. When that is a time that he composed the very, very famous, the encyclopedic work in Haridasa Sahitya, Sri Harikathamrita Sara, was composed by Sri Jagannath Dasaru at that time. So again, something that he owed to his gurus, Sri Gopala Dasaru, as well as Sri Vijay Dasaru. So what you see here is Sri Gopala Dasa's house, as we see it in Uttanuru, the Aradhana celebrations being performed there. I wanted to show you some glimpses. So we are almost coming to the end of his life. He is this one. Gopala Dasaru was also a great artist, like Jagannath Dasaru, which we will see in the subsequent sessions. He used to draw pictures. He used to draw paintings of Pauranic situations, and he also drew. What you see on the left is something called a Chakrabja Mandala. Some of you might be familiar. It is a picture and a pictorial representation of how we should pray to God. And in the center, you'll see Om Grini, Om Grini Om. So Grini is the name of the God who's at the center, and it's a meditative technique to think about God. So that is explained in detail by Vijay Dasaru in the Kankanadi Suladi that he has written. But this Chakrabja Mandala, of course, find its places in the Sarvamola Granthas. Sri Madhwacharya has spoken about it in the Tantrasara, and Jaitirtha has spoken about it in Padyamala as well. So what you see on the left is a painting, handwritten painting of done by Sri Gopala Dasa himself. A great artist. Unfortunately, it is not very clear. That is why I have taken the picture of how it will look if it is done in a digital format. But that is what he has done by hand. Of course, there are a lot of other pictures of the great paintings that he has done, which is still available in Uttanur. That is another glimpse of his house. And after leading a fantastic life, a very gifted life, where he has composed several great kritis, he has, you see Gopala Dasara Katte. So he was actually seated there when food was being served to all the guests in his house. There was an event of prayer on that day in his house. That time he realized that his time has come for him to leave. So that very place, which we see where he passed away. As we say that, great men like Sri Gopala Dasaru, Sri Kanakadasaru, they never go away. They are very much alive today in our hearts, in the form of great Dasa Sahitya that they have given us. Again, Sri Gopala Dasaru has composed several suladis. I would really recommend, all this is available on the net. Please download them, listen to them, and teach it to your children. Because nothing, Madhwacharya says that in his his Dwadasha stotra, that words spoken by great people have got a very special place in God's heart. When we may say a few God's name, but what is written, great poems, shlokas, stotras written by great men, has got a very special place in God's heart. So please learn these yourself. Please do teach it to your children. This is something that is so invaluable that we can give them. It will keep them safe, healthy, prosperous, wealthy, as well as having a lot of peace of mind, which is probably the greatest wealth that anybody can think of. He has done Suladis, Kirtanas, Ugabhogas, and of course many famous kritis. I've just indicated few of them. A kriti on Raghavendra Swami called Chandra Gunasandra, Rathavanirida Raghavendra, Avarogavu Yanage Dhanvantri, Kayo Jayanarasimha, and of course many. These are just representative of the great kritis that he has composed. There are many heart-touching kritis, as I said, that he has composed. Then in one of that Avarogava Yanage Dhanvantri, he says, Avarogava Yanage Dhanvantri, Deva Dhanvantri, Savadhanidhi Kai Piditu Ni Nodaya. He says, hold my pulses. That's how doctors who would keep a hand on their pulse to find out what is wrong with us. So he says, he asked Lord Dhanvantri himself, why don't you feel my pulse and see what is wrong with me? I don't even know what is the disease I have. He says, Harimurtigalu Kanisavu Yanage Kandalige. He says, my eyes don't see God's murtis or idols at all. That means my focus has completely gone away from God. Even if God's idol is there, I'm not able to see it. Hariya Kirtanayo Kelisadannu Kivige. My ears can't hear any kritis, any great prayers on God. Hari Mantra Stotra Baradu Yanage Naligege. When I want to I'm trying to recite, I don't think I'm able to recite it. And Hari Prasadavu Jivvegi Saviyadu Daya. He says that, when I have the prasada which is being given to me, they don't seem to taste properly at all. I find them to be very distasteful. What is wrong with me? Haripada Sevegalanno Hastagalannu Chilisavu. When I have to serve God, my hands don't move. And it happens to us when we want to do prayers, suddenly, our hands and legs don't seem to move. Guri Hari Rangrige, Shirabagadu. When great people come in front of me, I am not able to bend my head and do namaskara. That means I am not able to convey my respect to them. Hari Nirmalya Vangri Kanisavu Nasikavu. My nose does not, is not able to smell the great flowers and great tulasi leaves that I have offered to God. Hari Yatriganno Kal Odadaya. My legs don't move when I have to visit God. He says, what is wrong with me? Can you please tell me what is wrong with me, and so on and so forth. I'd just like to close with a personal anecdote that happened on Gopala Dasaru's kritis, the same Avarogava Yanage Dhanvantri. I had the opportunity to visit Udupi once recently in the month of January. And when I went there, I saw that every day in the evening they have the palanquin on their shoulders, and they take it in the form of an utsava. And there were two young boys, around 17 or 18 years of age, who were walking along with that, doing the chamara seve. And it's like a manual fan. Every day they would do it. And I would look at those boys and say, these boys are so special. When all their friends probably are wasting their time playing with some digital medium, they are sitting there, they are coming to the temple every day, taking a nice bath, performing the Sandhya Vandanam and doing the service to God every day. And after this seva was over, they have a process of somebody coming and singing. And an elderly lady, she came there very well. I think she was classically trained. she actually sang a beautiful song. And I said, oh, and this happened every 5, 6 days that I was there. Every day this would happen. One day, the next day, I saw that one of the boys who was performing that seva previous day had not come there. And the same lady came and she sang the song Avarogavu Yanagi Dhanvantri. And something, the way she sang that song really appealed to my mind. I said, this person is really singing the song from her heart. So I went and congratulated that lady, saying, Madam, you're singing the song really well. She said, this is not a song, it's a real happening in my life. Because you would have seen one boy, who was doing the seva every day. Yesterday, you would have seen him. Today, he is not there. He's my son. And every day both of us come here, he performs the seva, I sing a song. But yesterday, last evening, he has got a very terrible stomachache, and he is not able and doctors are not able to diagnose what it is. Earlier they had thought it is one disease, but now they are saying that is not the case. So I don't know what disease he has. So precisely in my mind, I have this question: what is the disease I seem to have? So it's a real question I'm putting to Krishna. I hope he blesses my son and my son becomes healthy. As divine intervention happened, the very next day, the child was diagnosed with something which appeared to be not so big and seemed to be like a minor thing. And the child got discharged. And look at the boy's conviction. The very next day, he came to the temple and perform the seva. So a song which was composed at that time has a lot of relevance even today. So these are not songs; these are real prayers composed by people who had an absolute trust in God. So that is what makes Gopala Dasaru and his works really, really special. So we will close today's workshop session today, but not without doing something very important. On the 28th of July, that is Wednesday this week, as per the Indian calendar, it is Sri Jaitirtha's Aradhana. Sri Jaitirtha is the principal commentator or Tika Kritpadaru of Madhwacharya's Sarvamula Granthas. 18 of those Granthas, he has written the commentary. Absolute rock star, and somebody's Kritis, the Shivanyaya Sudha, for example, is the encyclopedic work of Madhwa philosophy. A person whose works are held in the highest esteem by every guru, by every person who follows the Dvaita philosophy. A very unique personality. We have shared some of his life and events and stories in one of our earlier sessions. So I would request Sujit and Murli to please also guide us to where those sessions are. As Sujit has already spoken about it, it is something which is available in the NESRSB archives. Please do watch it and make an attempt that, in the next 1 year, we will have read at least one small kriti, that is, or one small work of Sri Jaitirtha. Padyamala is one such beautiful work, short work, which talks about what is the procedure for Deva Puja. How should one pray to God? Very, very simplified and very, very comprehensive at the same time. If not anything else, we should read this. Plus, we should also try and learn one kriti or one shloka on Sri Jaitirtha. Why am I saying this? Is that when you look at children, everybody knows Pujyaya Raghavendraya, and many know Raghavendra Stotra. We should also learn the shloka of his guru's guru, someone whom he holds in such high esteem. This is being hosted by Sri Raghavendra Swami Vrindavana, and the best way to pray to Raghavendra Swami ji is not only to read his work, but the works of Sri Jaitirtha, whom he holds in absolute high esteem. So let us make this attempt to learn one shloka of Sri Jaitirtha and try and read at least one of his kritis. A lot of lectures are available on YouTube by great scholars that will help you understand these kritis in greater detail. So with that, I would like to close. Of course, there are a lot of details about Madhwacharya for the youth. This is the organization which has been working for the last 16 years, covering tens of thousands of youth across the country, abroad, etc., where we are bringing the lessons from our scriptures that to them in a simplified form with something that they can actually you put to use in their daily life. So if you have any questions, anything that you would like to suggest or become a volunteer with us, please do write to us. We'll be more than happy to include you as a part of Madhwacharya for the youth as well. Um, yeah, I'll skip this for this one, and I will see if there are any questions that are there. Why was Karginle special that Kanakadasaru has set up a temple there? So one thing is that it is very close to where he was. That is where he was actually born, and in that area, Bada and Karginale are separated by a short distance. So that is that was part of his earlier kingdom as well. The second thing is Karginale also has got some historical significance in terms of the scriptures mentioning that as a very special place. It is Puranokta is what is the belief. So that is why he has selected that. There are, of course, many people ask what is his Ankita. So we say Gagi Nilayadi Keshava. But actually, he has used many Ankitas. But Keshava is common. Adi Nilayadi, Gagi Nilayadi Keshava is one. Adi Keshava is another. Like that, Beluru Keshava, Sri Keshava he has used. Keshava, the word is common, but that also became, he has used Kaginale Adi Keshava in many of his kritis as a tribute to the place where he established the temple and prayed to it there. Do we have any other questions? Yeah. So if there are no further questions, look forward to seeing you in the subsequent sessions. We will be covering the life and works of Sri Dasaru. As I said, a lot of new research has happened. A lot of pictures available about Sri Dasaru's life. Every part of his life almost is extremely well catalogued. So we'll have a very rich session, and that, of course, followed by life and works of Sri Jagannath Dasaru. Again, something because he's also one of the persons who is closest to us from a timeline perspective. We will learn a lot more about their lives and their works as well. So we will announce the dates for these sessions. Sujit and team will definitely let you know very soon. With that, I would like to close the session. Thank all of you. I hope you got some insights into the lives of Sri Kanakadasaru and Gopala Dasaru. As I said, there's a lot of information that's available today, and I would urge you to, and we will of course use the subsequent sessions also to learn more about them as we go along. Thank you for having me, and back to you, Sujit.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sundar. Yatha Prakara, it was a brilliant session. I was so mesmerized listening to all your anecdotal stories of your personal experience and also the experience that Gopala Dasaru and Kanakadasaru themselves went through, the transformational. And I think the story of transformational stories is paramount, is of paramount importance, and they seem to abound basically in all the historical stories of all the gurus as well as all the dasas that we're kind of encountering, right? And a couple of key takeaways I like to kind of point out that I got from this was, you kind of mentioned that Haridasa Sahitya basically addresses both the head and the heart, basically the intellectual part of it as well as the emotional part of it, which is very pertinent because there's always a dilemma as to is it bhakti yoga that we should go after, or gnana yoga, and this kind of fuses both of them actually, right? Right. Sometimes, like you said, right? I mean, people are at the front or at the back and so on, right? Sometimes the people who kind of pursue Gnana Yoga tend to think that, we are Gnanis, and that actually instills a sense of ego. Whereas the element of bhakti actually, instills a feeling of surrender and dissolves the ego actually. So this kind of, the Dasa Sahitya kind of plays a very important role in kind of ensuring that knowledge also is gained as well as your ego is also curtailed. Right, both aspects are type of address there. And the other important thing which kind of caught my attention was you said basically mentioned that scholars tend to kind of go on their own pursuit and kind of disconnect themselves from the actual social, right? I would call it as a spiritual divide, right? Just like we have a digital divide, it's almost like a
Absolutely.
spiritual divide. And people,
Yeah.
yeah, so here I think this kind of brings both of them together, right? scholars moving towards social causes and common man moving towards God, and making God the center of our lives. I think that's a very important part, right? And coming to Kanakadasaru, of course, you talked about the spiritual transformation which happened when he was actually wounded, basically in kind of a war type of situation as a chieftain, which kind of moved him from his mundane life towards spiritual pursuit. And of course, all the instances where the deep spiritual understanding that he had in terms of you cannot hide from God, and Nanu hodare hogabodu. I think that nothing kind of epitomizes his essence of poetry as well as the depth of his spiritual understanding very well. And I would be very much interested in looking at that Kanakadasara Samagraha Kritikalu by Sri Vyasanakare Pravachanacharya. Maybe we should probably try to procure that, and we'll get more details from that. People would be definitely interested in that. And I've started to listen to Haribhakti Sara very recently. In fact, I was not aware of its existence. That thanks to my ignorance, right? But I think that is a really good thing. I've listened to it a couple of times, and I'll be looking at getting some more on that also. And of course, again, Gopala Dasaru recited Gayatri 1 crore times. The single-minded pursuit, which kind of led to his transformational experience, and you said that he was able to see into people's lives, a couple of lives in the past and a couple of lives into the future, which is very. And Uttanur, I was trying to Google where it is actually. Do you know where exactly it is? He said about 200 miles, 200 miles from Bangalore actually.
No. That is more towards Udupi. This is respect to Kanakadasaru. This is not the Kagi. You must have heard about Kagineni. This is towards North Karnataka. I can send you the coordinates.
The Uttanur, yeah, Uttanur.
It's towards North Karnataka. Yeah, quite away from Bangalore. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was thinking